finished cutting away the velvet. See, I have a lot of scrap left over, so I can use that for something else. And I cut around all the things that were protruding outside the circle, including the stitches here. And I've created quite a job for myself here, but I really do want it to be blue, and I thought it was the only way I could do it. I'm using silk gauze here, which is a very tricky fabric to work with. It snags and it's difficult to sew down, but its advantage is it's just so light, and it can also be manipulated really easily. So I've chosen to just go around the edges here and work myself into all the nooks and crannies to define the ground. And I'm going to come back in later and fill these in, but I don't want to have to mess with the edge that's right up close. So this, I have quite a bit of this gauze, and it happens to have a selvage on part of it, which is really handy. And I'm using that to butt up against some of these really tricky areas here. Now this is something I do a lot when I change my mind about things. I'm just going to pin this here for now. And it's time consuming, but it can really make a big difference in both the texture of your piece, and it makes it easier to change things. I'm just going in with a single strand of fairly matching thread at this point. And let me say that when you want to add something like this and you want to keep everything flat, table basting is the best method. And I've got a piece of plastic underneath me here so that I don't catch anything. And I'm really basically starting simple, and I'm just doing a little bit of invisible stitching here to tack these pieces in place. My main aim here is to just cover up that gold. I left a little bit of gold around the edge so that I wouldn't cut into the pieces. So there's a little frame. And I'm covering that up with this blue gauze. And I can go back in later and actually, twist and tug at this silk to really make it cover where I want. But stitching on a flat surface, really, you can get into a lot of tension troubles if you don't do that. I'm taking short areas of stitch. I'm not necessarily going to tack this whole entire thing down. At some point I maybe go in and just trim some of it away, because the main thing I'm trying to do is to fill in the spaces here. And then what I'm planning to do is, go back in and start to fill some of the larger spaces, but I can kind of patch it raggedy and not worry about getting in here. I can use all different kinds of cloths to fill it in. So, the idea here is to cut and patch all the way around to get the shape defined, and then to come back in and fill in these larger spaces. I really think that, a solid, big space should have a texture to it. Let me just, you could start, I could have started with just a blue and put something in the middle of it. But even the dye difference in this gives it a little interest. But I think it's just much more interesting to have you know, some texture going on, be it stitch or motif or different fabrics, you know, just to give that open space a texture. Now this morning I pinned one of my heart pieces in the center of one of these leftover woven pieces that I had, and that's another great texture. But you know, it could have been anything I put here. It could have been this one even, or a sun or a moon or whatever. But you know, having a space around things, instead of thinking about it as you know, a border, it could also just be an open edge. It could just be more space for the motif to work within. And I'm looking at this now and I'm thinking, you know, it's the center of something, and it could become a sun very easily if I put some rays or some kind of triangular things around this. So it could become a square sun. And so that's just what I'm thinking right now. I'm going to work on the velvet one and get that filled in a little bit so that I can put some things into my outer space here.